Hello class, I'm going to be talking about equity versus common law. So common law and equity are two distinct systems of law that originated in England and are still in use in many other common law countries such as the United States, Australia and Canada. The main difference between the two is that the common law is based on the principle of stare decisis, which means the court's decisions are based on prior judicial precedents, while equity is a system of justice that is based on fairness and natural justice, basically. In common law system, the decisions of higher courts are binding on the lower court and create legal precedents that must be followed in future cases. This helps to ensure consistency in the law and provide guidance for judges in future cases. However, it can also lead to rigidity and inflexibility, as the law may not always be able to keep pace with changes in the society and new circumstances. In contrast, equity is a flexible system of justice that allows for the application of fairness and natural justice in cases where the common law is inadequate or unjust, basically. Equity recognizes that there are situations where the application, like the strict application of the law, would result in an unjust outcome, and it provides a means for the court to remedy these situations by ordering specific remedies or relief that is tailored to the individual circumstances of the case. Example of the types of remedies that may be ordered in equity include rectification, specific performance, injunctions, estoppel, account of profits, etc. In some cases, equity might even override common law, such as when the court determines that the strict application of the law would lead to an unfair outcome.
A great example of common law and equity playing a role in cases we know is how Brown v. Board of Education overturned Plessy v. Ferguson. In Plessy v. Ferguson, the courts only looked at the 14th Amendment, Equal but Protected Clause. Determining racial segregation was upheld under the Constitution. They disregarded individual details about Plessy, such as he was half white and black, that could have changed the outcomes of the case. The courts acted strongly in common law, while in Brown v. Board of Education, the courts acted in equity. They looked directly at the dangers Brown had to overcome to get to and from school, as well as how it violated the Equal Protection Clause within the 14th Amendment. They took into consideration Brown's individual situation and made a decision that was the most just. Let's hear about how common and equity handle more cases.
The situation at hand, you have a beautiful home here and you've decided to hire a contractor to renovate it, but instead you're left with this. Say the current example I just mentioned occurred and you live in either the USA, Australia or Canada. You're in a country that follows the common law legislation, and say your beautiful home went from this to this. You must first prove that there was a valid contract between you and the contractor and that they have failed to fulfill their obligation. You must also prove that damages had been incurred, and as a result you have lost financially. And if the court deems you successful in your lawsuit, the court may award you monetary damage to compensate for the cost of fixing the job and fixing the substandard of the work done. And this is a common remedy under the common law, as it seeks to put the person in the same financial position they would have been in if the contractor had fulfilled their obligation under the contract and wouldn't have had to pay extra charges for the fixes.
On the other hand, equity provides the person, in our case, like the person who wanted the house built, with the option to seek specific performance, which is an equitable remedy that requires the contractor, that is the builder of the house, to complete the job as agreed. Because as we can see, obviously, this is not the job that we asked for. Specific performance is only available in cases where a monetary award is not available. So you have to actually make sure that first the money is paid, or if it cannot be paid, then you ask for a specific performance. The remedy recognizes that in some situations the harm caused, you can't really pay it off. You have to redo the job. Specific performance. The person would have to show that the work performed by the contractor was unique and cannot be easily replicated. So that the contractor has to redo it, or in the same way that he did, because hiring a new contractor will be impossible because only the builder can do it in that specific way. For example, in common law systems, they would rely more on precedent cases to solve this case. If, for example, other builders had done the same thing, or if a contractor messed up, they would look at how they did it. While in equity, they will just rely on something that is just and fair rather than something that happened before.
In conclusion, both common law and equity provide legal remedies for those who have been harmed by a contractor's substandard or poor work. Common law provides monetary remedies, whilst on the other hand,
Equity provides a non-monetary remedy that requires the contractor to fulfill their obligations and complete the job as agreed in certain specific cases. So, equity can make your house look like this and go into this,
whilst common law can make your house either look like this or make your wallet filled with these.
Oh my god, Alia, did you hear about that person who stole a laptop at IE?
Yeah, I heard about it, but apparently there's video footage. Wanna have a look?
Oh my god, yeah, let's see it. It's really bad. Like, it's got me thinking, what's the difference between like the common law court and equity when it comes to a situation like this?
Can you explain that to me?
Yeah, like common law is based on a rule of based on rules and precedents set by previous court cases. So for example, if someone was found guilty of stealing a laptop in the past, the same punishment could be applied to this case.
Yeah, I see. Equity, like I know about equity, and equity on the other hand is more flexible. It's based on principles of fairness and justice, so the punishment could be tailored to the specific circumstances of the case. But in common law, that means that the person who stole the laptop would get a punishment depending on which it is applied, correct?
Yeah, exactly. So common law tends to be a little bit more frigid and inflexible, while equity, as you mentioned, is more open to interpretation and it takes account like certain specifics of the case.
Okay, and how would that play out in court? So in a common law court, for example?
Yeah, in a common law court, the person accused of stealing the laptop would be subject to prosecution, criminal prosecution. The court would look into like applicable laws of the jurisdiction and any presidential cases, any presidential case law that has been established in determining the appropriate penalty for the crime.
Okay.
Depending on the jurisdiction, the person could face fines, jail time, or both.
Okay, so that's interesting. But in an equity court, this would play out differently, obviously. So the person accused of stealing the laptop wouldn't actually face criminal prosecution. Instead, the court would likely issue an injunction prohibiting the person from taking the laptop or any other property from the university. And the court would focus on providing a remedy that is both fair and equitable to both parties, such as requiring the person to return the laptop to the rightful owner or to compensate the university for the loss of the laptop. The court may also consider other factors such as the defendant's criminal history in deciding what type of remedy should be imposed.
Honestly, like due to the intentional nature, as we saw in the video, I personally feel like the defendant should be directly punished. What about you?
Like, I agree. I think because like the person, like I can see in the video, like kind of intentionally wanted to steal a laptop and did it, I think that he should be directly punished for it, which again would kind of relate to like the common law kind of jurisdiction where he would be directly fined for it. However, like it just depends on, you know, the case. Like it just depends on how
Case by case.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So we won't know until it's actually like applied in court and brought to court.
I agree.
Only time will tell.
True.
So further, if there is a breach of contract or a contract dispute in common law, there needs to be an existence of a valid contract, a breach of contract, and damages as of one party as a result of the breach. Okay, so to explain this a little bit further for you to understand better, there needs to be a party A or a party B and also maybe even a party C. But let's say in this case, I am party A and you are party B. I am a car dealership and I am going to sell you a car and you have to make the payment to me when I deliver the car to you. When there's a breach of this contract, let's say that party B fails to deliver party A, me, the money in time, there will be consequences and suffering damages from this loss. Me, as party A, will then have delivered you a car with the expectation of you giving me the money. However, you haven't given me the money yet.
But Andrea, I don't understand. What are the remedies for the damage?
It's good that you asked this, Hannah, because the remedies available in common law systems for this is either momentary damages, which is the most common remedy in the common law system, and it's basically that a payment of the sum by the breaching part may be ordered. Or there could be specific performance, which is a less common remedy, but this means that basically if me, the car dealership, failed to give you the car but you've already made the payment and we have a contract, the court can order me to fulfill my obligations of this part. Overall, common law plays a vital role in the contract disputes by providing a framework for defining the legal rights and the obligations to the parties involved. It follows a more rigid, written law path than equity, and Hannah will now explain equity disputes.
And the equity court of equity, it's more flexible and it focuses more on fairness and justice, so we can say that it's more open to interpretation, and it's usually used for remedies when the law is insufficient.
So Hannah, you have to pay me this sum because you painted the wall yesterday.
Andrea, I'm sorry, but in the contract we both signed, it clearly says that I have to pay if I substitute or alterate anything, any furniture in the room. And I haven't done that, I just painted the wall. So it doesn't specifically say here that I have to pay for painting the wall.
The situation is that my landlord is asking me for compensation because he says that I have breached the contract because I painted the wall. So if we were in the common law system, they go by a more rigid rule, and they apply what is written in the actual contract, which would be that I don't have to compensate because it says nowhere that painting the wall is part of the broken rule. And if we were in Australia, for example, that this is still to some extent used, this would be more flexible and the law would be interpreted based on fairness and justice. So probably painting the wall would be considered an alteration and I would have to pay compensation for that.
As seen by the previous cases shown, common law and equity are two very distinct legal systems that review situations differently. Common law creates a legal framework and structure based on judicial precedents, while equity focuses on the solutions that are most fair and just based on individual circumstances and details.